Hi, good morning. Happy Monday. Thank you for clicking on and tuning back in and joining the conversation. And I hope that you will join the conversation. I hope that you'll comment or reach out to me in message or email, because I always like to find a way to share hope and help people love the life they're living, because don't we know this world needs a lot more hope, and loving our lives is part of the fruit of that hope. So in the last few live videos, I've been talking about these little verses in Isaiah where we find nuggets of hope. And I'm reading out of the Passion Translation. If you haven't found this, please check it out. Dr. Brian Simmons and his wife Candace have just done a fabulous job in bringing out really the spirit of the word, not just the literal translation, but what the author was trying to say to his people, and unpacking the heart of the Father. And my husband, the chemist, and I have really locked onto this, and we're just finding it life-changing and very encouraging for us. So last video we ended up in Isaiah chapter 3, talking about the daughters of Zion. And remember that the Zion is really a metaphor for all of God's people who have chosen to really make God their God. But like many of us, back when Isaiah was writing, those daughters, those people of Zion had gotten distracted, had gotten overloaded and discouraged and fearful, and so they wandered away. So in chapter 3, Isaiah is talking about how the daughters of Zion had really become more concerned with what they were wearing and their jewels and that outward appearance, instead of the condition of their heart, which is what God is always concerned with. And then obviously, because when Isaiah wrote, he didn't write in chapters and verses, so chapter 4 is just an extension of chapter 3. And Isaiah starts out right away with, in that day, 7 women will grab a hold of one man, and that one man is Jesus. And they will say, we'll eat our own food and we'll wear our own clothing. Just take away our disgrace and let us be called by your name. And I love that, because when I read the word disgrace, I think of shame. And there's a lot of us today that are just carrying shame. And that's not what God intended for us. And so in their place of being more concerned with their outward appearance and their jewels. And I am not saying accessorizing is bad. I love accessorizing. But when we choose anything above God, it becomes an idol, and it becomes a distraction and something that pulls us away from Him. So what they're saying is, look, we don't want anything from you except for that you take away our shame and give us your name. And I love that, because there comes a point in our lives when our shame is just too much to bear, and nothing else matters. Nothing else can compare with just the relief of taking away our shame. And the beautiful thing is that's exactly what Jesus does. When He died on the cross, not just for us, but as us, He died to take away our shame. And when we say yes to Him, when we come back and we say, yes, God, I need to make you my God. Jesus, thank you for dying for my sin, my shame, my pain, the things that I've done, the things that have been done to me. Thank you for that. Then we literally become part of His family. And so what the daughters are saying is exactly what happens. Take away our shame, take away our disgrace, and give us your name. And we're willing to continue to take care of ourselves. But don't we know that God takes care of us and provides for us? We talked in the previous video about the birds of the field, and I had this kind of conversation in my head with Jesus last week about, well, but even the birds of the field, they go and they get their worms and they build their own nests. And I felt like Jesus in this conversation said, well, how do they get their own worms? he said it rains and I pull the worms to the surface, so all they do is have to go get them. And I love that picture of God, because whatever we need, he puts in our path. The Revelation 22 talks about the river of life dropping its fruit in season. And what that reminds me of is that everything we need, all the resources we need for life, Peter says for life and godliness, is all dropped in our path. And through nature and creation, God always provides for us, just like he provides for the birds of the field. And all we need to do is just go and get it. But that's a side note. So talking about the daughters of Zion, in the second verse in Isaiah 4, it says, in that day, the branch of Yahweh will be glorious and beautiful. And we talked about sparkling, and we talked about sparkling being something that comes from the inside out, not from the outside in, like the daughters of Zion were trying to do. So what Isaiah is saying is, when we come back to God, when we come back and say, take away our shame, take away our disgrace, give us your name, that we're locking back into that flow of life that comes from Jesus through Holy Spirit who lives in us. And anything that comes from Holy Spirit comes with life. And the New Testament talks about that river of life flowing out of us. And so when we are a branch, and Jesus says in the New Testament, he's the vine, we're the branches. When we are a branch, when we come back to Jesus and we get reconnected to him, that life can flow out of us. And the continuation of that verse is, and then the fruit of the earth will be the pride and the glory of the remnant of Israel. So the fruit of the earth being the way the chapter 2 talked about it, is the sparkling flow of the people of Zion all toward the mountain of God. The fruit of the earth then becomes things that are peaceful and loving and good and kind and gentle and full of self-control and faithfulness. And we also can do things like have compassion beyond what we're capable of. And then we can continue that whole thread, because then when the people become a people that flow and point to God, we have fruit, like we have solutions to problems, and we can begin to change neighborhoods and communities and cities and nations, because we now have positive, productive solutions to things that have been taking us down in the past. So when the daughters of Zion, and when you and I realize, like, oh, we have stepped away, we've been trying to do things in our own strength, we've been working more on outward appearances or works of faith rather than hearts of faith. When we come back from that